only mentioned his name because he has been so important in their lives. It was felt that since he was born in New York, started his journey, it would be a great idea to make it full circle by using this opportunity when so many people are interested in crystal skulls are gathering to have a very special honoring of him. And it is wonderful to announce two people that are called Stephen, who will do this particular honoring of that particular Nocerino. Stephen Mailer, you know already. Stephen Holger, I think many people may have known his music. You realize that the fact that Stephen Holger is here is a very special homage to Nick Nocerino.
Thank you, Dr. Benny. So first of all, let's clear up a misunderstanding, maybe between some of the other presenters, or you folks in the audience. Why is Mailer on the program twice? It's not about me. The reason why Kendall asked me to do this, it's not that I knew Nick longer than anybody. In fact, Stephen Halpern knew Nick longer than I did. And other people worked closer with him than I did. But the connection is a New York City connection, as you see in the program. Because Nick was born in Brooklyn, and I was born in Brooklyn. And as you New Yorkers know, we consider ourselves unique and different from the rest of the country. Well, we Brooklyners consider ourselves more different than anybody else in New York. So, Nick and I shared that special connection. We shared a lot of Brooklyn moments. And this is very special. And this is really why I'm here, why I was helped into being a part of this program was because of this special honoring. And I'm going to say just a few words because we cannot do justice to the life of this truly, truly remarkable man. Crystal skulls were only a small part of who he was. And yet, no one knew more about them than he did. Yet, my favorite quote of Nick's is, he would say, "The more I study crystal skulls, the less I know about them." That showed the great humility of the man. Another great quote, he would say, "I don't go after crystal skulls, they come to me." As Michelle knows more than anyone, constantly in the last 30, 40 years, people were calling him, contacting him, saying, "I have this skull, I have that skull." He would go to them, or they'd come to him, constantly. He told me, again, that he probably saw as many as 15 to 18 skulls that he classified as being ancient. So it's more than 13 right there. But again, different levels of ancient. Truly amazing man, and we can't do justice, but we're going to do a special honoring. And I was hoping we'll have Stephen say a few words, because he knew him. If Dale Walker's not here, and Laurie, Kirby Z, are you here? Come on up. We're also going to ask the Nocerinos to come up. Michelle, and her son and her daughter. There's Dale and Laurie. Great. And so I'll ask each person to say a few things, few thoughts. Again, my understanding, as Michelle said to us, he was so much more than perhaps the greatest researcher and one of the greatest teachers of the 20th century. In fact, Nick was known as a teacher of teachers, and Dale is the proof of that. Dale, one of his greatest students, wrote a book, The Crystal Book, which is a seminal book in the field, still to this day. And he is now a great teacher. Nick made teachers and sent them out into the world. Say something.
In 1975, I woke up. Well, you know, I woke up in 1974 too, but that's beside the point. Everybody who gets into this business of light, energy, and consciousness wakes up at some point in which suddenly they're aware that there's something beyond the physical senses. You all know what I'm talking about, and you probably could figure out the day in which you woke up. For me, it was on my birthday, January 21st, 1975. I lay in bed and I'm thinking, well, here I am, midpoint of my life, And I've done everything they asked me to do. You know, I've got the career, the wife, the kids, the dog, the cat, the car, the house. I've done what they wanted. So why am I dissatisfied? Does that sound familiar? And then I realized it had to do something with expanding the mind, which I kept thinking was ESP, extrasensory perception. My next door neighbor told me about a psychic fair that was in San Francisco, which was about an hour away. So I went to it, and I had a reading by a man who was so incredibly accurate that I went to his house and had a much more in-depth reading from him. The man's name was Nocerino. And I went to his house, and I kept thinking, you know, I'm going to see some unusual thing about it, but it was just a nice, simple house, nice people inside it. There was a couple of things that were a little unusual. One thing, he was talking to me, and his hands were scanning a magazine, Catholic Digest. And he was flipping the pages, going like this, and he would stop for a minute, he would look at something, he'd come back, and he'd go back to talking to me as he was scanning. And I said, "What are you doing? Are you reading with your hands?" He said, "Well, something like that." He had programmed his hands to perceive something interesting and leave the rest of it out. And I thought, God, that's a great way to learn. When did somebody told me how to do that when I was in high school, huh? Well, it didn't stop there. The phone rang. And his wife, Chris, answered it, and she said, "Oh, okay, Sergeant, just a moment. Nick, this is for you. It's the police department." "How the police department? What, did you get a ticket or something?" And he started talking to him, and I realized he was talking about finding a missing child. And he would put out his groups of people, his psychics, to find him. He'd been working with the police department for a long time on missing people and murders, and it was quite well accepted, but they didn't talk about it. And I'm thinking to myself, this is not your normal psychic. Normal anything, isn't it? At any rate, he actually started me going on crystals, because in his study, when we did the reading on me, there was a crystal, and I asked him about it. Now, I'm ignorant, right? But I'm brave. I'll ask questions about anything I don't understand. I said, "What is that?" He said, "Well, it's a crystal." I said, "Well, I know it's a crystal. I mean, I've seen crystals before, but what is it for?" And he said, "Well, it gives you energy." Now, I asked him probably the dumbest question you could possibly ask somebody who's a master teacher, especially in this field. I said, "What can you do with energy?" And I can sit there later, I tune back into him telepathically, and he verified what I said. He's thinking, what do I tell this idiot? And then I got him so flustered, instead of saying something like, "Well, you know, you can do psychic readings, and you can talk to the dead, and you can do," he says, "Well, you can talk to trees." You can talk to trees. And I'm going to sit down and talk to my oak tree, right? Have long conversations with him. How's things happening? Do you visit with your family? And I said, "Trees?" He says, "Yeah, you'd be surprised how much a tree knows. It sits there for centuries, just absorbing information." I don't know why. So it began. And I began to take a few classes with him. I never took a class on crystals or how to use crystals, and I asked him about that some years later. "Why didn't you ever teach me a class on crystals?" He said, "You wouldn't have developed your own style." There's a master. He knew then that I would have followed exactly what he was teaching, and that was what I would be teaching. But instead, I opened up my inner consciousness. I learned how to go into a crystal and meet my guides, my teachers, and they began to teach me. Now, this man was my mentor, my teacher, my friend for a lot of years. I want to tell you now that this is the most incredible man I ever met. I've never met anybody quite like him. I think they broke the mold. Whenever I would have a question, especially I would get something really interesting that would come through my inner teacher said, I'd go rushing over to Nick and say, Nick, did you know that? He said, oh, you have to do this and this will be even better. I think, damn. He knew that one too. So I got talking to him one day in a restaurant with a group of us, and I said to him, Nick, they were talking at that time about tea leaf reading, and he was talking about different ways he could read tea leaves. Now, I was pretty much aware of psychics by that time, and knowing, those of you who are out there, you know what I'm talking about. Most psychics focus on one thing, and maybe they know two or three others. So I asked him one time, how many disciplines do you know? He said, oh, that's a good question. He was even a red hat llama. I didn't know you could become a red hat llama and be an American, but he was. Now, he thought about it, and finally he said, well, I guess maybe around 200. But I understand the nature of Nocerino. He didn't just look at something, he went to it until he understood it. If he studied something, he stayed with it until he had mastered what it had to say to him, what it meant to him. That's a true master. To go to that degree of completion. But can you imagine anybody who understands, knows how to do 200 different psychic disciplines? The man had the first teaching credential to teach metaphysics in the California University system. He was also a master hypnotist. He taught hypnotism. Again, he had a teacher credential for teaching hypnotism. He started it all. And of course, the skulls. He is the master. There will never be somebody with a degree of interest and ability and capability. He used all the things he had learned all those years in working with the skulls, and he knew what he was doing. So I would just tell you, this is a man that I honored and respected for his intellectual capability, his mastery of skills which I couldn't even come close to. He had the greatest heart of anybody I know. There are a lot of stories people tell about his generosity. And he was my friend. I miss you, Nick.
I learned about Nick through Dale. Dale was taking his classes, and I wanted to take them too. It turns out that Nick was very choosy about who he taught. I don't know what it was he had to see in them, but he asked me if I want to come to the classes, it's fine. I was blown away. He was my teacher, he was a mentor, and I think about this, and he believed in me more than I believed in me. And I learned, again, over and over as the days go by, things that I learned before that didn't really understand. And he is going to be really missed because, like Dale said it all, he was a master in everything. And I'm not long-winded, so I'll turn the
This is Kirby C. We had a great fortune of working with you for many years.
Let's see. Here we go. You see this? This would not be possible without Nick. Nick connected me with engineers from the Exploratorium in San Francisco, and also engineers from Apple Computer, and he saw we all had different pieces of the puzzle here. And we came together with Nick's guidance, and we created Light Technology. And I'll be demonstrating and talking about it more in detail, but he was this kind of person who could see possibilities happen, and he would put people together. And I'm so grateful to Nick and his family, and I'll be talking more about that later, but just to show you.
And it is my extreme honor to present internationally known, recognized musician and artist, Stephen Hoffman.
It's indeed a pleasure to be with you today, and just being in this room, I know many of you know this already, and it might have been said, but just being in this room is changing us and charging us, both with our own energies and the energies of the skulls, and the exhibitors. I want to acknowledge them. I've had a couple crystals jump into my hand, and I came here saying, I have plenty of crystals, I'm not going to buy any today. And when a crystal says, I'm coming home with you, you know what I mean. So, I met Nick in 1973. In fact, one of the people who invented this light box, Randy Fons, was part of the initial research I was doing in sound and healing, curling photography, and measuring also the biofeedback of plants. Randy was just a part of the Secret Life of Plants book. And once I connected with these researchers with this new music that I started channeling, which was different than what I was playing when I was living here in New York, they said, you should meet this other guy. It was Nick Nocerino. We became distant friends, and I was adopted as his nephew. He was my uncle, in a sense. And he helped get my music into some hospitals for underground research to verify the efficacy that there's something really different going on with this. And then years later, when we first found I was invited to do some research, playing some of the colors and sounds that I had on my first album, Spectrum Suite, which became Chakra Suite. And I asked Nick, if you mentioned this, well, how do you find these crystal skulls? He said, well, we fly around at night, which is now known as remote viewing, but he would never get into specifics. In fact, he said, we saw you sitting in a temple up in the Andes, so we know you're supposed to be part of this research. And I never had that experience, that I'm with that. But I didn't argue with Nick. Sometimes you don't know if he's telling the truth or not. But that was part of it. And in some of that research, as I was holding the crystal skull, at one point, there was an electric feeling and almost a radiation burn feeling that happened. I said, Nick, what does this mean? Is it good? Is it bad? He said, no, find out. Like what you were saying. And then 2 weeks later, that band of burning sensation moved down a little bit. And I can't tell you to this day, nothing really bad happened, nothing that I know really good happened, but there was some kind of opening on another level that I always respected and honored as part of what is going on here to this day. So, do I play the music?
No, let me do an introduction then.
Do an introduction to the next series, and then I'll have a brief moment to play a little sample of the music that I was doing when I first met it. And then later this afternoon, as part of the finale and the closing ceremonies, I will be playing some more to share with you some healing music, some attunement music, and we will get into the space of breathing together and being one. So, thank you.
Now I'd like to ask Michelle and her son and daughter to come over. Nick shared with me in the last few years of his life some incredible things. I could never pay him back, but we're going to do a start today. For the auspices of our three producers, Kendall Morgan, Alan Steinfeld, and Zachary Frater, we are now establishing here in New York City an annual F.R. Nick Nocerino Award for metaphysical, crystal skull, and crystal research. And the first award goes to the Nocerino family.
Yes.
And now in the Tribute Suite, we will have a wonderful musical tribute to Nick Nocerino from Steve Helper.
So let me invite you to just take a deep breath for a moment. There's nowhere else we need to go right now. This will be just about a 5-minute program. I will start with this wonderful electric piano, the Rhodes, R-H-O-D-E-S electric piano, which I was hearing in my meditations before it was officially invented. And I got one of the first versions of this right after Herbie Hancock, and it was part of my honor to bring this sound out of the world. Years later, it was understood that the sound was almost produced the same waveform, sine waves, as the crystal bowls, which we will hear some of later on that you know about the crystal bowls. So this is essentially the crystal bowls with the keyboard. And after the first minute or so, I would invite you to chant on the English vowel O, any frequency that you like. There are no errors today. But if we begin to harmonize, working on this key, total center, we will ion train with the dominant frequency of the planet as well. And from here we can radiate out those frequencies. So right now I invite you to just close your eyes, go inside, and feel.